Hello and welcome to episode 11 of this space exploration Factorio series. In the last episode, we set up a whole load of rocket silos, so I now don't have to get so anxious whenever I approach one of these logistics rocket cargo control panel thing. That was making me anxious. I've now got a blueprint for it, so happy days. We also set up some immersite, because we're going to need a whole load of that. And then we set up this space platform for Astronomical Science Pack 1. And just one for the moment, but that one science pack should give us access to the cargo rocket multipliers that we need to make the cargo rockets really as effective as the game allows us to get them. And that's really important because I've set up a lot of cargo rocket kind of transportation stuff. And at the moment, every time I launch one, I'm losing a whole load of rocket parts. And that's stuff that's expensive and that I want to conserve. So that's the priority for this episode to start off with, is to get access to this Astronomical Science Pack. And to do that, we need beryllium and iridium. Now, beryllium, I've got a factory pretty much set up. I just need to turn it on and set up some train stations. Iridium's going to be a little bit more involved because I don't have any factory for that, but both of those things I need, and that's what we're going to be doing. So let's get on with it. Alright, so a little bit of humility required from me here at this point. These cargo rocket multipliers, we aren't going to be able to research them up to level 20, the full maximum. We can technically get there, but realistically it's just going to take... So I didn't look at this. Didn't look at it in enough detail. So now that I'm looking at it in enough detail, science pack, so just... upgrade number 11 of 20, we need 2048 of these science packs. You know, we're not making enough of them. Well, you know, when in the future, when we've got the greater levels of these things, these processes that give us much greater quantities of these particular resources, we are going to be able to research that much quicker. We could be here for weeks waiting for this to research. You know, trying to pump as much resources into this part of the factory as possible to just pointless. It's not worthwhile. So, I'm just going to let that sit there for a while, doing its thing. Just get as many of the levels that I can. But as an issue, I'm just going to park it for the moment, because in setting this part of the factory loose, you know, in letting it go, we're starting to expose other problems in this factory, you know, the one in orbit. And the principal one, at the moment, there might be other ones. I'm looking at this. I'm looking at all of this factory now, because the more I uncover of this game, the more my plan changes. You know, and if it feels like my plan is changing all the time, it's because it is. You know, these mods are is a daunting set of things to take on. It's like I'm taking on I'm trying to conquer several mountains. I'm looking at this peak of mountains. I've got loads of mountains I need to conquer. And I can see a few of them, but a lot of the ones in the distance, they're all covered by fog. And I'm trying to plan, how do I get from one mountain to the other most efficiently? It's really difficult, not having a complete picture. But the point is, the problem that I'm trying to get to is that the resources that we're delivering to this platform, they're not being delivered correctly. You know, the way that I set this up way back when, with my control panels. Let's have a look at Novice. This control panel, you know, I was at the time that I made this, I didn't really know what I was doing. This is me excusing it. This is me giving you excuses now as to why I am where I am. You know, I didn't really know where I was going when I was here, and I was really just trying to get from A to B. And I feel like I've arrived at point B now, and I need a point C. And to be honest, all of these control panels, I think. All of this stuff, let's have a look at the map. The map's probably better. All of this stuff here, I think I need to kind of rethink it. I was starting. So what I'm going to do is I did start the process. What I want is I want all of these rocket silos, one for each ingredient next to each other, blah, 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 blah. And I did kind of start that process. And by starting it, I've kind of thought, you know, this is the way to go now. This is the way I need to go. So what I'm going to do, I don't really know the order. So whilst we're here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill in this block here with these kind of paths. This big block in here, I'm just going to fill it with rocket silos. One for each individual ingredient. Simple. I'm going to leave this here in prosperity, but posterity. But I'm not going to use it. I'm just going to let it sit there. I'm going to build a completely new one. And then when it comes to the platform, this is probably where it has the potential to get more complicated, because I've kind of tucked myself in a little bit. What I'm going to do is these belts, I'm going to continue all the way up. I'm going to rejig all of these. So these ones are going to kind of come up to the side of it, I think. And then I'm going to remove all of these science belts. I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to remove all of these cargo pads as well, the ones that I've already got. And I'm going to redo them. Like this one, I've got imersite, crystal, and plate coming on the same pad. You know, that's probably not too bad, 2 ingredients, but I want this new approach. So I think I'm going to take all of these landing pads down. We're going to bring a bus of belts up here, past my solar panels, and we're going to build just, I don't know, what, 30 or 40 landing pads, each in an individual box, each delivering a single ingredient, and then all those belts are going to come down. And my plan, what I'd really like to achieve, really like to achieve, is to get rid of all of these belts here, all of these spaghetti stuff, because I think by bringing this main bus down, I can feed it right to feed this stuff, and then I can bring those belts left as well, and I can feed those down and get them in other places that will allow me to remove this. That would be really nice. A really nice side benefit of doing this. It'd be really nice to get a shot of that. So that's kind of where my plan is. This is a big old change. This is a big old rebuild. But I think it's time. You know, it served its purpose. You know, I've learned a lot along this journey, and I think by learning that, I know where I need to go and where I went wrong. At this point, this is the extent of where it's gone wrong. So I suppose to go right back to the beginning and go back to my rocket parts. So the crux of the issue is the time lapse. Like, if you've heard me talking about this time lapse, there's certain key things I want to achieve with it. If we look at the latest shot, then what we have is we've got half of the time lapse is filled with factory, and the other half is filled with blank space. And I don't like blank space. Before moving the camera, I want to fill that blank space, but I don't have access to any of the things that I need to put in that blank space. So I've been thinking about it, because I could order things in a particular. I could fill this space with other. That's not what I've decided to do. What I've decided to do is I've decided to embrace the chaos, because this base is chaos. It's just going to be a spaghetti base. It's just going to be whatever I can pull together. So if the time lapse is a little bit chaotic, then so be it. You know, it kind of fits the factory in a certain way. So although it's not going to be something I don't like, I'm going to do it anyway. So I'm going to move the camera over here in some direction, so I can remove all of these pads, create a new bus, move the camera up, build my new rocket silos, and then go to novice, and then build all the corresponding versions, and hopefully this will open up, you know, the potential for delivering resources to other places. You know, at the moment, I'm going to pick one at random, sulfur. You know, if I wanted to deliver sulfur to some other planet, I wouldn't really be able to do it with the setup that I have, because I've set it up with these whole like chains of processes. Like, I've got it tucked in with everything else. Whereas now, if it's got a dedicated rocket just for sulfur, then I have the potential to deliver that anywhere. And that's really, really nice. That would be really, really nice to have. So there's a lot of benefits to this approach. There's a lot of advantages and a lot of things that I'm going to improve by doing it. It's just going to take a little bit of time, but it's definitely going to be worthwhile. So that's what we're going to be getting on with. I've got a big task ahead of me. Let's just get on with it. Let's go.
Bling bling.
Right, okay then. So we're waiting for these things to fill up, all of these silos. Most of them are there. You know, we're just now waiting for production module, and this isn't on the time lapse. This is another set of silos that I need, and blue science. So it's just those two things that we're waiting for fill up now. And I suppose from your perspective with the time lapse, you know, when I'm recording something that's taken a very, very long time to take place, you know, you've seen all these things fill up relatively quickly. And that's just because I'm recording at a very, very, very low frame rate. You know, when these things take a very long time to happen, you've got to wind down that frame rate. So I think I'm taking a frame every 10 minutes or so at the moment. So every second of footage that you were seeing at the end, that was like 5 hours worth of gameplay. Anyway, that's kind of by the by. Because it's taken a long, long, long time for all of these things to fill up. And when the game kind of presents me with that sort of situation, I really don't like waiting. I want to crack on with doing something. And I don't really want to. I don't really want to leave the computer on overnight. So that's just not the way that I play the game. So, whilst this thing has been filling up because there's an enormous amount of resources, it's obviously completely drained the entire factory of anything that was producing or anything that was on any conveyor belt. And so, in this time that I've had, whilst all these things are building up, I've just kind of taken it as an opportunity to upgrade the factory. Look at all of the individual things that are happening and try and boost stuff. So, to kind of give you an idea of what I've been doing, start off in iron and steel. So I've now got modules. I'm now using modules. Not a usual place for me. So, I've been fiddling and trying to get just the right amount of speed modules and production modules to get it humming. I think I've got it to a point now where it's doing as good as it can get. I've done something similar with copper. I've done something similar with the circuit boards. I've really had a look at what I was in deficit of. I've tried to come up with ways to kind of remedy it. It's doing much better now. One of the things that the factory was really struggling was with sand and all of the stuff the stone, the sand, the quartz, the silicon. And the glass, all of that stuff. When I built the block, when I built the part of the factory that was dealing with that, it was not. I just assumed that those elements were not very important, and I was way off. They're actually a lot more important than I gave them credit for. So I had a quick look through the recipe tree, and there was actually better recipes for glass and silicon that I wasn't using. So I've kind of knocked down most of the factory that I had. In here, I think I had some factory units that were dealing with quartz, glass, and silicon all in this space. So I've taken that down and replaced it with just glass. I've done the same here, and I had the same kind of setup here. So these 4 blocks now are just dealing with glass, and then on the other side of these train stations, I've built the more efficient setup with for silicon with the vulcanite blocks. This is coke. This is not really what we're dealing with here. This is something entirely different. I just had nowhere else to put this in the factory, so I just put it here in silicon. This is the bit that I've built here up from the pulverizers. So now that I've done that, the factory is absolutely humming, just humming along nicely. We've got the critical ingredients are now green circuit boards. We're probably over here. This is probably the most critical thing in the factory. In that this is going to define the speed at which the factory can produce things, is how many green chips I'm making. But if I tried to produce more green chips, I would run out of copper very quickly. The relationship between the copper and the green chips very linked. If I increase one, then I'm going to have to increase the other at the same time. So the factory here is now doing really well. Really, actually, no. Let's just scratch that. One thing isn't doing very well. So, one of the things that I've set up, I didn't upgrade it. I just kind of set it up. Was my core seam fragments. So I built this and I put it down, and I didn't turn it on. I just left it there. It was the right amount of pulverizers to do the job for all the seam fragments that I have, and there's probably an extra bit of bunts in there. I've probably got, I don't know, maybe 50% of these pulverizers I don't really need, just in case I want to. In the back of my mind, I'm thinking that if I deal with any of the core seam fragments on any of the other planets, then the kind of the vanilla core that we get as a result of breaking that specialist core, I would want to send back to here. I think that if I was going to start dealing with the core seam fragments, that would be the approach that I'd take. I would deal with the specialist core on the planet, and then I would ship the other cores to here and deal with them here. So I did kind of want some extra capacity in here, but as you can see, it's not going at the moment, and I'm sure it's obvious. It's the thing that many people have told me along the ways is rare earth metals. It's just we have way too much of them, and that is what has jammed up the whole system. So, you're probably screaming at the screen for me to turn that into landfill, and that's a fair thing to say. That's not what I'm going to do. I mean, the thing is, I don't need this at the moment. All of the stuff that these pulverizers are making, I've got mines set up, I've got all the oil rigs and the mineral. I've got all of the trains set up to deliver this stuff to the factory. I'm just kind of having this here just as some extra stuff, just to ease the burden on those things a little bit. So if it doesn't work, it's not the end of the world. And the thing is, whilst I've been running around upgrading all these things, this rare earth metal conveyor belt that you can see up here, I don't know if maybe I'm not looking in the right place. This one here that's, you know, completely jammed up, this happened whilst I was upgrading the rest of the factory. And I was I looked at the factory trying to find why is it jammed up, and then another hour or so had passed and I came back and it was flowing again. And I don't think, I can't remember changing anything about that factory which would change the demands on those rare earth metals. So, like, it's cleared itself. Like, it just cleared itself for some reason. Yeah. When it was clearing itself, I went around and looked and I tried to find the place where the rare earth metals were being used, or, you know, that was clearing this backlog. I couldn't find it. Genuinely, I couldn't find it. I think it might have been the small engines and the big engines. But so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pay attention to the recipe tree to try and find ways that I can lose these rare earth metals. That's what I'm going to do. So, I mean, the thing that I've done for the moment is I've upgraded the substrate. I've added in some extra conveyor belts so I can bring in the rare earth metals for the substrate. I don't have that recipe yet. I didn't know that I didn't have that recipe when I did this. I thought I would just be able to have it. So anyway, when I get access to this recipe, this will be a good place to sink some rare earth metals. We've also got, a material testing pack, which we will need as part of the material science. And that needs rare earth metals. So that's going to be a good place to send some rare earth metals. And I am kind of tempted to set that up now, solely so I can throw all of the excess rare earth metals that I've got at the moment at it and clear this backlog. And build that store up in the background. And I would keep an eye on it to see how long it would take as well. And I do know that we need some rare earth metals on the platform at some point in time for some of this science stuff. So we're going to lose some of it there. I'm just not sure we're going to lose enough of it. Rare earth metals, hey? Anyway, so for the time being, I've shut down the enriched process for the rare earth metals. We're now just using... I've just run a circuit here. What I found is that I've got free circuits. I've got free circuits with when I'm in this satellite mode. So if I set things up with a circuit, where are we going? Then I can disconnect it anywhere in the galaxy. You know, I can just disconnect this straight away. What I used to do was just remove a piece of conveyor belt, and then if I wanted it to come back, I would put that conveyor belt in. But I can't do that with satellite. Anyway, so I've turned off all the enriched rare earth metals. The only thing entering the system is the stuff coming from the pulverizers. It's just jammed up. So anyway, that's where we are with the core seam fragments. Now I have been up to orbit a couple of times. I've been working on orbit for the. There is some stuff that's happened in orbit which you won't have seen at this point because I'm kind of holding it back from you. I'm just kind of concentrating on novice for the time being. But in setting up all of these kind of cargo things up here, I have kind of got all of the things now in this bus to run it to a space elevator, you know? I could just set up some train stations up here somewhere and run all of these conveyor belts up and set them up with trains. That would not be difficult. Anyway, I suppose pipes might be an issue. You know, liquid. So I've had this thing in the back of my head for a while, like ever since Angel and Bob days, to be honest, about liquids, because it felt when I was playing in Angel and Bob that the viscosity of the liquids was different from liquid to liquid, and it was different from what was in vanilla. And I spoke to someone about it, and they've confirmed that you can actually change. So viscosity is like the measure of how thick a liquid is. If you imagine the difference between water and syrup, like syrup is very, very viscous. If you tried to put that in a pipe, it wouldn't flow very well. Water is less viscous. It will flow much, much more easily. And there are liquids which are even more viscous than water, which will flow even more easily. In vanilla, I think they have one level of viscosity for all of the fluids in the game. So all of the pipes, all of the fluids, they all behave the same. But when I was playing Angel and Bob, they all seemed to behave differently depending on the liquid that I was dealing with. And I'm pretty certain that that in these mods, the viscosity of the water is so low that the liquid flows through pipes is not a problem. Now this came to light because of iridium. So let me take you on a little journey. Let's go to Marial, because that's where we're making the iridium. Have I got it set up here? Yep, here we are. So iridium ore comes in blocks or stack sizes of 10. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Let me just check. Where are we? Here we are. 10. Right, yes. Now, trains, when I do trains, I'm constantly conscious, or at least have been over time, of how many trains I have versus how much factory I build. You know, what are trains capable of delivering? It's actually a difficult question to answer. I still haven't got a fixed approach for it. But in your mind, what I want you to imagine is that we've got 2,000 of something on a train. That train delivers that 2,000 of something. It then goes back to the mine, picks up some stuff, comes back again and delivers another 2,000. So what's the time delay between that? Because if we know the time delay, then we can work out a rough average. So the way that I do this is that I use an average for each storage cart. And that average in vanilla is about 20. So that 2,000 ore, I'm assuming that that will last about 100 seconds. It will take 100 seconds for the train to go back to the outpost, wherever the mine is, pick up some more stuff and come back again. That's the approach that I have. So every time I have a train, every storage cart on that train adds 20 average. But that is based on a stack size of 50. So with a stack size of 10, we don't have an average average amount of stuff we can get from a storage cart of 20. We now have an average of 4. And that's ridiculously low. Like if we go to, if one of my kind of, I keep hitting the wrong damn buttons. A standard train. So what we have here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 storage carts. So for my average approach, that should provide 160 ore per second. Is that right? Yeah, that's right. 160 ore per second. That is a nice number to deal with. If we did the same with iridium, we wouldn't be getting 160 ore anymore. We would be getting 32 from 4 trains, 8 storage carts. 32 ore per second. Now, that is pointless. Completely pointless. To the point where conveyor belts are better. You know, 4 trains, 8 storage carts, I'm getting 32 out of it, but a single blue conveyor belt will give me 45. So, I mean, the point of all of this, to get to the origin of the statement, was liquids. And the reason is because we need sulfuric acid to mine iridium. So, if I'm not putting iridium on a train, then I need to pipe sulfuric acid to any iridium mine that I happen to want to set up. So, oh, I've hit the wrong damn button again. So look at them. My iridium mine is all the way down here. And I've got a conveyor belt and a couple of pipes to get it all... Oh, come on, there we go. All the way back up to the base. So I don't know what that is. That's a couple of thousand tiles, easy. And to get to the point, I've had 0 problems with flow rate on this pipe. Just 0 problems whatsoever. So, to bring it back round full circle, this real ramble. If I decided to bring these pipes up here and add some more train stations, I don't think that would be too bad. Anyway, what I want to do now, what I want to do now is I want to go into orbit and I want to deliver all of these things up there and I want to start building that factory. And that process has already begun. Like I've already been working on the stuff in orbit. So there's a bit of catching up we need to do. Suppose we just get on with it. We now have Astro Science Pack 2 to go with the Astro Science Pack 1. Not 100% sure what Astro Science Pack 2 is for. I haven't really looked at the research tree as to what it gives me. All I know is that I need it. Anyway, we'll come back to this area in a moment. Because I've got my rocket silos, all of my rocket landing pads, delivering all of my stuff, and happy days. It's just doing a really good job, from a throughput perspective. It solved a lot of the problems that the old rocket landing pads had, which was that I wasn't really using a full cargo rocket, and I wasn't really delivering enough materials to kind of keep the factory going. It was constantly stopping. Anyway, so from that, that side of things, I'm relatively happy. But, from a kind of factory design perspective, it makes me die inside a little bit building something like this. It just feels ugly. Not ugly. Just like it doesn't require any thought. Like I like being a little bit intelligent and clever about how I go about these things. I maybe not as intelligent as clever as other people, but I have my own ways. And this kind of solution, this kind of banging down a whole lot of these pads, just makes me feel a little bit hollow. It doesn't give me the sense of satisfaction. But, I am getting that throughput, and that throughput is lovely. So, that is a certain amount of satisfaction in itself. I suppose you can see it like this. If we look at the map, it's up here in the right-hand corner, well away from everything else. And that's because it doesn't really exist within the context of the rest of the factory. It's been put there to do a job, and if I have to pull it down at some point in the future, then I will more than happily pull it down. But it's doing the job. I suppose that's really the crux of the matter. It's doing the job that it needs to, and it's doing it really, really well, to be honest. All of the rockets are automated now. I haven't had one that I'm aware of crash, and it's really nice not to have to worry about it, not to have to constantly have to check which ones are running out. So anyway, mixed feelings about this solution to the problem. Mixed feelings. Over here we have a couple of cargo rockets for scrap, trash, anything I want to chuck at Novice that I don't want up here. And then we've got our science labs. Now, we've got an enormous amount of stuff that we need to negotiate and put into this science lab. What is it? 1028 we have things that we need to get in there. And the way that I'm choosing to do it at the moment is with conveyor belts. So you know, in my mind, we've got a science lab here, which is 7 by 7, and we can feed ingredients into it on 4 sides, and each of those conveyor belts can have 2 ingredients on it. So 4 times 7, 28, times 2, 56. We can technically feed 56 ingredients into each science lab with a conveyor belted system, just like this, by feeding them all with loaders in the sides. It does mean that we need just an enormous amount of conveyor belts, but I quite like conveyor belts. This is. Anyway, so in my, I've got it set up for half. So I've got it. Well, no, I'm choosing to ignore the middle lane. So I'm not going to use the full 7. I'm just going to do 6 on each side. So that gives me 6 times 4, 48 potential ingredients, which is way more than I need. I've only got half of those at the moment. At some point in time, I'm probably going to have to open up another side. You know, this side, I think the side in the middle I'm going to have to leave empty because it's just I tried to feed them all along the centre and it was just a pain, just a complete pain. So I'm ignoring this line, this edge of the close edge to the centre, and I'm just going to feed it around all the other edges. So for these other edges, I'm just going to bring in some conveyor belts. I have to move it across, bring the conveyor belts around the edge a little bit. Yeah, I think I can get that sorted. But that's probably some ways off. You know, what we got here, we got 1, 2, 3, 12. We've got 24. And we only need 28. Unless the lab changes at some point in time. Oh, anyway, it's way too much stuff to think about. We've got a lab. And it's positioned up here with the excess and the scrap in a way that I can, you know, I've got freedom to move it around. You know, in my mind, if I need more things, I can just build more landing pads up here. I can feed those belts down, and I can, you know, I'm trying to build the base in such a way that I can add more and more and more and more stuff as is necessary. You know, this space here is very, very alluring. It's very, very tempting to put something in there, but the moment I do, it's going to confine me along this edge and stop me bringing more ingredients down, and it's going to confine me along this edge, and it's going to stop me bringing ingredients left. So this part of the base at the moment is just going to be, you know, future potential expansion stuff that I just can't see. And I'm just going to work my way across this way. So in terms of the research, the science pack, the astro pack, the stuff that I've just built, I do feel like I'm getting to grips with the flavour. You know, I don't know how all of these recipes tie together, but I feel like I'm starting to understand, you know, the kind of the rough rules by which these things are related to each other. You know, I suppose in my mind, I'm thinking about the potential of me. I'm always thinking about this potential, about what if I were to do this again, how would I approach it differently? And so in my mind, I'm trying to tie some of these ingredients together. I have no plans of rebuilding anything that I'm building at the moment, and I'll get to that in a little bit. But you know, in my mind, I like to think about it just as a thought experiment. So I'm trying to join these things together in my head of you know, common ingredients. I suppose that's probably more for the future. But in terms of what I've got down here, you know, what I've tried to do is address the problems in the future. So what we have here is this thingamajig. What is it? Multispectral astrometric analysis. So astrometric analysis. So this is only version 2. We do have a version 3 at some point in the future, and the only difference between the version 2 and version 3 is just a few of these extra data packs from somewhere else, some other astro science pack. So what I've done is I've built this to accommodate those 2 extra conveyor belts. You know, I've got once I've got those 2 other data pack thingamajigs, I can just feed them in and upgrade and just change the recipe to the new upgraded type. So I knocked down what I had here originally, which made this, because you know, this is now common for all of the astro science packs. This will feed all of the science packs, and as I progress, it will get more and more efficient. Similarly with these I'm terming Mr. Blobby, these blue blobby things, which relies on these catalogs, and as we get access to more of these catalogs, we get more and more efficient version. You know, we get more and more of these blue blobby things. So I've got those 2 conveyor belts here. Once I get access to those, so as I get access to these data packs and as I get access to these catalogs, I don't think I need to rebuild any of this. You know, I think I've got the final version. I can just feed stuff into it. And that's for how those belts get in there. You know, I've got infinite amount of space down here to spaghetti in a belt. That's, you know, we are just trying to get to the end. We're not necessarily trying to do it as elegantly as possible, because the elegantly would require me to understand what's coming in the future. We also have, let's do this on satellite view. We've got our significant data pack thing. So this was originally in the mid, it was buried in the middle of here, but you know, I'm starting to get the flavour of these things, and this is kind of the centre. All of the science packs feed this thing, and then this thing feeds all of the science packs in return. So putting this in the middle of astrological science was not the right thing to do. It needs to go in somewhere central that I can feed stuff to, and then feed stuff from. So that's why I've put it here. And you know, this is probably quite a big thing. You know, you're looking at this is quite a lot of stuff here, Bigfoot, that you've got, and I know that we get access to more effective these supercomputer things, like the ones that we'll get access to in later times, versions that will craft things faster. But I'm not really interested in, you know, faster. I'm interested in big, and I'm interested in, can I build it right now? Because if I can build it right now, a final version of it, then I can build everything around it, and I don't have to worry about it. If I have to constantly think about how it's going to change in the future, how am I going to accommodate those changes, then I just lose my mind a little bit. So, even though I'm using a much more primitive version of this thing than is available to me, I can, at the very least, build it right now if I use this one. I just got to make it a little bit bigger, and maybe potentially throw some modules, some speed modules at it at some point in the future. But, you know, I can build it now, so I'm going to build it now, and I'm just going to leave it here, and I'm going to build around it. So that's the significant date. As I get access to the more of these blobby things, you know, the different colours, I'll get more of this. And anyway, you know the idea. So that is Astrological Science Pack. And in terms of you know, we in terms of progressing to the next Astrological Science Pack, we need some of these kind of stuff. We need some stuff. And I've been busy on Novice building that stuff. Let's have a look over here. So I did have some rocket silos here originally that I've taken down. Oh man, cargo rockets. When you've set up a few cargo rockets and you subsequently decide that you don't want them, and they're full of cargo rocket parts, demolishing it is such a complete pain in the backside. That's why I've got all these chests down here. These are all the remnants of what I had to demolish to build this thing. I mean, to be honest, I am now looking at these control panels that I've got down here, and I'm thinking about what other things that I could potentially put in this space. I don't know why I'm thinking like this, because there's a map that's infinitely large, and I can put anything wherever I like, and it's more work to demolish. But I do quite like my final factories. I don't like leaving stuff around. I know I said that I was going to leave it here in posterity, but I am pondering removing it. We'll see how that goes. We'll see how my mind plays with that. Anyway, so we've got the aero pole thingamybobs here. We've got the next thing, which is some sort of frame, and that's going to be here. So I just need to turn it on. It's got all the ingredients. That's not far away. And then we've also got the bulkhead. What's it called? Oh, I don't even have it. Aeroframe bulkhead. So these three things, which is what I need to get to the last science pack, the last Astro Science Pack, I have right here ready to go. I just need to research it, turn it on, and then probably set up a rocket pad for it. A silo in here on Novice, and then a pad on the platform to receive it, and then I've got it. That's not all that work, particularly as I've got all these blueprints now and I can just copy them. Oh, it's glorious. Anyway, so that's where we are. We're just going to keep progressing along the Astro Science Pack route. I'm just going to keep building until I reach a point where I have a problem. That's the plan. But that plan will have to come to fruition in the next episode, because that is that for this one. We're making some progress. It does not feel like we've made all that much progress towards the ultimate end goal in this episode. Like, you know, it feels like what we've mostly done is build these rocket pads and just give us throughput. That feels like we haven't progressed along the path. We've just given ourselves volumes of material, which is useful and good going forward. But we now need to concentrate on those science packs. And I'm not just talking about astrological ones. I'm talking about all of them. You know, I need to be up here for some period of time now just building science packs. Anyway, that's it for this episode. I hope it's been good. Till next time.